live viewers and our podcast listeners. For video viewers, as you can see, I'm wearing my Warriors gear here in anticipation for the beginning of the NBA season, which starts today. But really, it's mostly an excuse because I'm in a dire need of a haircut, and this is a wrestling podcast. One half of our dream team is missing today. The future host of the Sunday edition of Wrestling Observer Live, Andrew Zarian, had a last-second thing to deal with, so he's not going to be here. But that doesn't mean that it's just Denise and me. We do have a special guest. Firstly, let's introduce Denise, somebody who just booked 2 guests for her Speak Now shows on this very YouTube channel, including one with John Pollock, a favorite of mine. Denise Salcedo, what's going on?
What's up? You know what? Why is someone always missing on this show? Like 2 weeks ago, I was missing. And then last time we weren't live. And then this week, Andrew's missing. Someone's always missing on this show. But either way, glad to be back here once again. Got a lot of cool stuff in the works. And yeah, I'm very excited also to introduce our guest shortly.
Yeah, and let's actually talk about our special guest here. You know him as the host of Wrestling Daily. And he describes himself as your man in the UK for wrestling. And I like this a lot. We may have to talk offline about this. He also covers boxing and MMA. Welcome to the show, Alex McCarthy.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me, man. Delighted for the invite. I'm glad I didn't let Denise down this week, so that's a perk. But Andrew's ducking me, man. What's going on? Can't have it all, I guess.
Wait, has Andrew been avoiding you? What's going on there?
No, he hasn't. But now you're in my head, Denise. After I let you down last week, are you telling people to duck me? I don't know. Also, Garrett, while we're here, I'm a Lakers guy.
Yeah.
We picked up Avery Bradley from you, so I'll take it.
You did. Yeah, we face off. We face off head to head tonight in the opener, and I do have a bet with another Lakers fan. Bourbon for bourbon. So hopefully I will come out on top with that. But hey, Lakers are an excellent team, and I cannot say anything bad about them because our own Denise lives in Southern California, which is Laker country.
Hell yeah.
So.
Hell
and respect your elders.
So, I didn't know, Alex, that you were a Lakers fan. The second I heard you say it, I was like, hell yeah.
You know, my first job in journalism was an NBA writer, funnily
enough.
No way.
That's amazing.
It was. There was a website over here in the UK was the official UK NBA partner, and I was a staff writer. That was my entry. Kobe was my guy. So there you go. That's my whole basketball odyssey summed up.
Wow.
I learned something new about you every day.
Mm-mm. All right. So, I guess we kind of have to start talking about what happened on Friday, which was Rampage and SmackDown going head-to-head for 30 minutes or so. I think SmackDown ended a few minutes early. SmackDown wins the overall demo for the night ever so slightly. But Rampage beats SmackDown head-to-head ever so slightly in the 30 minutes that they were going on. WWE seemed very concerned about that number and getting a lot of national people to bite on what the fast national numbers were, which didn't tell the full story. But that topic, if you've seen Twitter, that topic has sort of been exhausted. Dave went off this morning on Wrestling Observer Radio. Listen to that. What I want to talk about when it comes to the Friday Night War is all the great wrestling that we got. But because both of you are content creators, it probably made for a very busy, at least Friday night for Denise. I'm not sure what your routine was for it, Alex, but I want to ask, let's go to Alex first since he's our guest. How crazy was the the SmackDown versus AEW with the buy-in and you having to cover all of that stuff? What was your night or day like?
Yeah, so again, to be fair, luckily for me, I was able to watch it mostly as a fan in a way because I've been off work for the past week, had to take some holiday. No, didn't get to go anywhere nice, so don't worry about that. But I was just kind of set up like most people were. Had the laptop in front of me for the buy-in, Suzuki Danielson, had Profits and Usos up on the TV. Later on, of course, I've got Becky and Sasha going at it, while CM Punk and Seidel were going at it. It was just totally spoiled for choice, man. And I would say for me, just on a personal taste level, I was really into Danielson and Suzuki. Like, how could you not be? It was an absolute classic, man. But later on, Lynch and Banks got my custom rather than Punk and Seidel. What I saw of Punk was cool, like, and I was watching it, but Lynch and Banks was so good that I just couldn't take my eyes off it. So that's the story of two halves right there, man. Like, that just shows you how much benefit there was for us to enjoy that wrestling again. But it is tough because there's stuff that you want to watch and you can't truly give yourself to both shows. And then, of course, for me, it's like, I don't know, it starts at 1 a.m. and I think it went till 3:30. Yeah, man, by the end of that, I'm like, I've got nothing left to give. I can't go on Twitter after that. I need bed.
Yeah. So how much of the Monday Night War did you see? Like, I'm trying to gauge, like, if you, because I know Denise was like,
trying to ask how old I am, or?
Well, without asking exactly how old you are, but because the reason is during the Monday Night War, like, a lot of wrestling fans, well, we didn't necessarily have the screens to watch them both, but you're sort of flipping back and forth and, like, trying to make sure that, WWF has, like, some goofy gimmick thing. We're going to switch it over because the NWO is on, and they would sort of counter program. And I was just wondering, like, did you have any experience with doing sort of the watching at the same time from prior wrestling history?
Yes. So I'm 33. So right around the Attitude Era, I was about 10 years old, which is a great age to be a wrestling fan, as we all fondly recall. But yeah, for me, I must admit, when The Rock came along in WWE, that was like the war over for me almost. Like, I was pretty hooked on him and Austin from that point onwards. But I was going back and forth. In the UK, back then we had just like a little black cable box and the channels were literally only one apart. So you would just flip between the two. I think it was, TNT still here for WCW, but Sky Sports 1 for WWE. I would say I always lent more to WWE. By 98, it was hotter anyway, right? So the tide was kind of turning. I wouldn't say I watched the NWO at their apex, but I still did flick back and forth for sure. And I know many people in the UK around my age definitely did. But again, this is a new age, to coin the term. And we had to the luxury, I guess, now most people, you call it luxury, it's actually difficult. You can watch both shows at the same time, or at least keep an eye on them without having to go back and forth. So I don't know whether that's better or worse, if I'm honest. It's tough.
Yeah. And no, it is very tough, especially if you are like Denise and actually have to cover all of the shows. So Denise, on Friday night, you got Danielson and Suzuki, and there were some other matches on the buy-in show. And then you had SmackDown running at the same time. SmackDown goes an extra half an hour because they wanted to compete. And so Rampage starts. And so from essentially what would have been your time, from 5 o'clock all the way through 8 o'clock, you're just constantly watching a stream of some sort of wrestling. What was your routine like on Friday?
I hated it. I got to be honest. I hated it. And the reason I hated it was because I don't like having to have my attention split in half, because it is sort of impossible to do both shows. And you had the buy-in, okay? That was one thing. You had SmackDown, then you have Rampage afterwards, and you have that half hour, with SmackDown and Rampage. And then before that, you had the buy-in and SmackDown. So it was just so much, to the point where I was like literally swapping, I started off with SmackDown on my big screen TV, and I had once the buy-in started, I switched it to the buy-in on TV, and then after that I kept the Rampage on TV, and then had SmackDown on my phone. And it was one of those things where it kind of got me like picking and choosing, like whoever had like the better thing going on is what I was essentially paying more attention to, because that's just like what it comes down to. At the end of the day, something's going to pull your attention a whole lot more. And so for me, like, I'm glad that Alex mentioned it, because during the CM Punk Matt Sydal match, my interest was completely on Becky and Sasha, because they were completely tearing it up. But then prior to that, I miss I missed the Usos and the Street Profits. Why? Because I was like so invested into Minoru Suzuki and Bryan Danielson. So it's one of those things where like you kind of had to pick and choose. And I gave like a terrible, like half, like a terrible review of SmackDown because I was like going back and forth. And so it kind of got to the point where like it was just like, okay, I'm going to talk about the main things that I particularly liked from each show, because trying to talk about everything all at once, I was bound to miss a couple of things. So for me, as somebody who has to do this live, I'm not a fan of it. I like having, my eyes on one thing.
You were the person who I was thinking about, because we did a live stream on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel, cheap plug, and like I was trying to watch stuff, and then we were talking about it. It was we're doing like a watch along kind of thing, and it was really hard. And then I thought, wow, Denise has to watch it. She has to take it all in. She has to comprehend what she just saw, and then she's got to talk about it for an hour. And just imagine. I hope this doesn't happen. And based on the ratings, I think it's probably not happening. But what if WWE decided to do a third hour of SmackDown on FS1, which would go head to head with Rampage, and then you'd have to sort of do this thing every Friday, and I think that would be a nightmare to do.
It is. It's too much, man. For me, like I don't want it that way. I want to have the separate shows, to be honest.
No, and the other thing is that when it comes to we can do this as wrestling fans. Friday night is hard. Friday night is not the easiest night for me to watch wrestling, but I made sort of the schedule change. I was like, look, we're going to do this. But if this was every Friday night, I actually think it would hurt the momentum of both shows, because I think people would just be like, okay, I cannot, something's got to give. And that's what happens a lot of time in content, is when you have a lot of success and then there's maybe a little bit of an oversaturation. Everybody comes to that point of something's got to give, and Friday night isn't the best night for me to watch stuff. So I just push everything. Usually I just push everything to Saturday and Sunday, but trying to create this head-to-head thing was interesting, and I liked it for one night, but I don't think I could do this every single weekend. And so that is for I'm telling WWE, do not put this SmackDown third hour on FS1, because it's going to it's going to hurt things. I don't think it's going to help things. But actually, let's talk about some of the great stuff. So Al, you both mentioned we got Sasha and Becky, we got Danielson and Suzuki, and then on Saturday we got Danielson and Bobby Fish. We got the Brock versus Roman segment with Paul Heyman kind of hanging in there as Brock says that Heyman is still helping him, and so there's this really good cliffhanger to that segment heading into Crown Jewel. But Alex, if you could pick your favorite thing that you saw from Friday and Saturday, what would it have been?
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, I think you've summed it up a little bit there for me, where there are only probably two stories in WWE that I feel like are being done well at the moment, that I would put on a par with some of the storytelling you have in AEW. And I would say that is Roman and Brock, and I would say it's Seth and Edge. They're the two stories that I'm really into, that are outside the generic can they coexist or champions challenger match or whatever the hell they call it, right? Like WWE's little playbook they pull from these days.
They're tired tropes.
Exactly. Whereas these two are actually, some thought, some consideration has gone into them. So I loved the Brock and Roman segment, particularly because I was like, man, why wouldn't you just finish on Becky and Sasha? Especially after they tore it down. I was like, oh, that would have been a great way to end the show. But what WWE has lacked maybe since the early 2000s is episodic TV, where it does end on a note of where you want to see what happens next. That very rarely happens on WWE TV anymore. And that's what they actually managed to accomplish this week. So I really, really dug it. Roman giving it the big dumb farmer talk to Brock Lesnar. And then the way Lesnar delivered his line was actually excellent too. Then you got Heyman's facials, which obviously $1 million. I thought it was excellently done. But in terms of action, the two matches the whole weekend that, gripped me start to finish. I said it earlier, Suzuki and Danielson was just absolutely incredible. When you paint a picture in your mind of what you want and expect from a dream matchup, you see two people put on a billing and you're like, oh man, like what could be? And sometimes it isn't. Where I was at WrestleMania 34 and Styles and Nakamura wasn't, right? It just wasn't what we'd hoped it would be or what their Wrestle Kingdom previously was. This was it. I got what I wanted from Suzuki and Danielson and then some. And then I thought Banks and Lynch absolutely tore the house down on SmackDown. The pace they worked at was absolutely insane, right? Like they could barely let up for breath. I was so entertained. The Four Horsewomen don't miss when they work together. So it's kind of great that I can pluck from both companies and say, hey, these were two excellent bits of work.
The pace was as if they said, let's not give anybody a chance to change the channel. That was the pace. And they were excellent. It was a really, really good match. And we actually
I thought the match was going to be like 10 minutes. I thought it was just going to be, I thought they were working at a breakneck pace because, maybe time's been cut, but it was just goddamn excellent.
Yes.
They let everybody savor everything that they were doing in the match too, which was my personal favorite aspect of it, where like they really didn't I thought that we're talking about the pace. I actually thought that they did it about so perfectly where it wasn't necessarily like fast the entire time or anything like that. There was moments where they stopped and paused and, felt the crowd out and felt each other out and like really like just like reveled in the moment.
So can I ask you?
You weren't really going to. Sorry, I knew you weren't going to really get the finish.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
But and that's all I wanted to say on that. Like we all knew it wasn't going to be like a clean finish, but still, in a weird way, I don't think it detracted from the amazing work that they did. Like that's how great a match they put on. Really, that wasn't the lasting impression. So yeah, amazing from them too.
So I want to get Denise's thoughts on what we saw on Friday and Saturday, but I have one thing that I kind of am interested in both of you. And Denise, we'll start with you first, which is now I'll give you my impression. Sasha, Becky, Charlotte, Bianca, this whole sort of these four women, they're all great. They're fantastic at what they do. And there's a little bit of a bridge between both shows with all of these four women, but it's very clear. And when Bayley comes back, there's a nice little top five there. It's very clear that these four women are positioned as the top women in the company. And I love it when they all work together. I love seeing them on screen. This on Raw, they had Charlotte and Bianca in the Battle of the Bodysuits. It was awesome. But they don't feel comfortable beating people. Like they don't. There's like this hierarchy, and it's frustrating because I like everything about these four women and their intermingling, except for the finishes of these matches. And that comes off, I feel like it hurts how big these programs really should be and how great these women are to have this bad booking at the end kind of limit what, how important these matches should be. Denise, what do you feel about how they're working, how they're using these four women as the top women and intermingling them? But then, as we saw on Raw, there was no finish. And I think it could have been such a fantastic moment for Bianca to win that match, but they decided that's not what we're going to do here.
Well, for me, it's one of the situations where literally Becky and Sasha and Charlotte and Bianca each respectively had phenomenal matches this week. And it's gotten their matches are so good that you don't just compare them against women's matches. No,
yes,
you compare them against the men's matches because they're also to that level where they are legitimately going in there and they are killing it. So with that being said, that I completely agree with you. Last night on Raw, we had this brutal match between Charlotte and Bianca. The chemistry that those two women have with one another is phenomenal because this was one of the things that I was saying on our Raw post show is that Bianca is such a great baby face, and then you have Charlotte who is such a great heel, and there's people that she's the exact polar opposite of Bianca, and they both need each other in this situation. So they're going on to be on, after the draft takes effect, they're going to be on separate rosters. And so to me, last night, given the match that they had and how good it felt to see them go at it the way they did, so much power and athleticism from both of these women, I really wish we would have had some sort of a conclusion with an actual winner, because that's the thing. One of the biggest complaints about, Raw and WWE booking in general is that you're giving people the idea that things don't matter, and you want everybody to know that everything that they do matters on the show. But when you're basically saying like, oh, we're just going to have a bunch of DQ finishes, or we're going to have a bunch of matches that are going to lead to nothing, you're telling the people that it doesn't necessarily matter. And that's the frustration, because there is great wrestling, as we saw last night. And so with that being said, they just need to give us a reason and tell us like, okay, does this matter? Because even after this match, I was asking myself, okay, so are they adding Charlotte Flair to the Saudi Arabia match, or are they not adding her to this match? We still haven't seen anything as of last night where they've said anything about this. So it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, so what now? I mean, those girls are going on to different brands. So what now?
Right. Alex, what did you think about the booking of this stuff?
Yeah, I think Denise made a great point there in the fact that Bianca Belair, amazing babyface, Charlotte Flair, amazing heel. I remember when they first met, I believe in NXT, even though WWE will tell you it's first time ever, whatever. But they met in NXT, and in that point, Bianca was kind of like the in-between role, right? Like the EST, she was kind of still growing, and Charlotte Flair was doing whatever she was doing as the champion, I think, at that point. And it wasn't the same, whereas now, both of them are so much more comfortable in what they're doing. I think the match was just leaps and bounds better. It's like, us Triple H, there's no secret about the depth of talent in WWE in the women's division. And right at the top of it, the names you've mentioned, it's unbelievably stacked, right? But for some reason in WWE's mind, they don't feel like you are a top talent if you take any defeats. No matter what the story carves its way to, or anything like that, they just look at it as if they can't do this clean. We have to protect people, damn it. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, if the story calls for it, you can eat a loss from time to time, especially when you're going against top-tiered people like this. It's crazy when you think about, the names you mentioned, right? Bianca and the Four Horsewomen. Rhea Ripley, who was on a hell of an ascension, is kind of just another player at the moment on Raw, when really she should be exactly in that bracket, killing it. Like, she should have been a major, major addition to the main roster. Probably should have got some revenge on Charlotte Flair by now for the WrestleMania loss. That's, she's never really avenged that. So they don't, I don't know, they've always got this one-track mind of, okay, it's this person and their story, and we have to protect them at all costs. And I think they need to find ways of telling stories outside of, hey, distraction finish. You know what I mean? Like, you can't use a distraction finish every week and think that's going to hold up people's credibility. That's my problem, really, with it.
Yeah, no, both of you make fantastic points. The way, I think basically what Denise said, where when these four women work, you don't just look at it as a women's match. You look at it as, oh, this is a great wrestling match. Their matches are on par with a lot of the really great stuff that we see. And, that this doesn't, I don't have the context of this, but I just saw the rating for Raw, and they did a 0.39, which I don't know if they've ever done. Like, last week was a 0.42. I'm trying to look. Like, I went all the way back to August, and it's the lowest rating that they've done. So, they're doing some good things, but also at the same time, really, really hurting, I think, from a fan loyalty perspective, when everything is a setup for something that doesn't happen. It's like, oh, let's make them excited. And then I feel, as a fan, I feel silly for being excited because the payoff was nothing. And that's going to lead to my next discussion with the both of you, which is on upcoming.
Garrett,
yes.
One more thing. So I do want to give a shout, because we were talking about what the things that we saw this weekend, and I think Alex got all of the ones that we wanted to get. But I do want to give a shout out, no worries, to Dante Martin and Malakai Black, because they literally had a phenomenal match. And I feel like that match deserves a shout out on top of all the other matches that Alex mentioned. That was a phenomenal match.
Great point. My failure as a host, because I did not come back to you about that.
No, it's okay. How sad. Now I feel bad that I made you feel bad.
No. So this is a little bit of a meta thing. As a host, like both of you will understand this, is a lot of times when you do these shows, you kind of have your script of what you want to talk about, but you also want to utilize answers from other people to veer off in different directions, right? Like that's kind of what we do. And so I was using that to then go back, and I forgot about this other piece that I hadn't yet asked Denise.
Garrett.
And
You're fired.
100% my back. But can we stay with the Malakai Black thing for a second? Because I'm so happy that you brought him up, which is I was talking to my co-host on the Fight Game podcast, John LaRocca, and I said, you know, we've been sort of looking for this character of not replacing The Undertaker. He's never going to be replaced. He's never going to be duplicated. What a run for The Undertaker. But they had Bray Wyatt, who was like this mysterious character. And we wondered, like, oh, could this kind of be an Undertaker-like character? It was not. And we have Malakai Black, who may fit that even better. And if you think about it, NXT was supposed to be the company that got the talent ready to go to the next level. And what happened is NXT had Aleister Black, and they hand delivered him like on a platter to AEW and just said, here's a guy, run. And he's so amazing. Like, it just boggles my mind that NXT, WWE, could have people like Aleister Black, now Malakai Black, and Adam Cole, and show us as fans of NXT how great these guys are. And then when it comes time to turn them over to the top brands, they're like, nope, we're just going to deliver you to AEW on a platter as full superstars. Man, Malakai Black was so fantastic. His presence, this is why I say the new Undertaker, because when the Undertaker came, it was all about his walk and his entrance, and he would accentuate moves. He would sit up and the crowd would gasp. And Black does that, better than anybody else does today. He utilizes his time to make things super duper meaningful, even though he's not doing 100 moves an hour like some of these other matches. So I just found that to be like, wow, it really opened my eyes to, what the problem is there, which is you have all of these guys who are sort of ready, and women. And, Alex already talked about Rhea Ripley, who is absolutely 100% ready to join that group. And then they just don't do it with them. So, which is very frustrating, but to AEW, it worked to their benefit. But if Alex had any thoughts on Black, or Denise, if you had any more thoughts on Black, I just find him to be fascinating character.
Oh, Garrett. Garrett, I have some thoughts. I mean, it was funny to me when, we heard all about the NXT rebrand, right? And they go, yes. They're skewing younger and larger, and the scouting's changed. And I remember I spoke to Samoa Joe about it, and he was like, yeah, Vince wants to go in this direction, but it's always subject to change and all that great stuff. Whatever. And I read a torrent of tweets where people would say, Triple H never made anyone for Vince McMahon, or they weren't aligned, right? NXT and WWE, they never had. He obviously didn't deliver what Vince wanted. Oh, give me a break! There were a ton of guys to come out of NXT who would have been absolute superstars anywhere else in the world, as is being proven now. How could you get Miro so wrong? Especially when Rusev Day was over as hell. Look at the man now. He's the most powerful he's ever been, coming off a loss, for one. Malakai Black, of course, firing all cylinders as well. Like, NXT, Ricochet, when he went to the main roster, NXT actually did a good job of making him feel special. We all remember the flip out to Velveteen Dream. Like, these little cool moments that made him feel like he was a big deal. What is he now? In the eyes of WWE, I should say. What is he now? It's so hard to say. I disagree with anyone who says that NXT have not pre-made anyone ready for the main roster, or who could be a success on the main roster. It's not their fault that Vince wants to then call you Doudrop, or have Karrion Kross wear a mask, or a myriad of other things, right? He's got his own little mindset, and he doesn't want to, latch on to different trends in wrestling. He thinks, no, you know what? We'll go back to what sells. I want bigger, I want younger, and they'll get in the main event. Yeah, and Bron Breakker probably will be great. Don't get me wrong. But there is like a limit on that, where you need great workers, and AEW is now the land that is taking advantage of all of these things that Vince McMahon doesn't see the value in. And I think a lot of us fans have gravitated towards that, whether you were on board with AEW at the start or not. I remember I sent out a tweet last year saying something to the lines of like, I can't believe Aleister Black, I want to say it was Miro, and I can't remember who the third one, but I was like, I can't believe these three guys are just sitting around doing nothing, like under contract. Like, I can't believe they have nothing for them on TV. And I think, look where we are now. Like, they're off doing killer things elsewhere. And it stands to reason, like, WWE will look anywhere but at themselves, right? They will never go, it couldn't possibly be our product. And I think, there are fundamental reasons within that, of Vince McMahon's own little bubble and WWE's own universe, as they call it, that, will make those points. But at the same time, I feel like AEW picking up these talent and showing what a success they can be, or helping the talent show that, it shows you everything you need to know.
A little bit of an expose on finishing school. Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, I agree with Alex on this point a lot, because it's one of those things where, like, now, because I almost feel, because in our recent memory in, the last like year or so, what do you have of the recent memory of NXT? You have them losing in these Wednesday night wars, and then you have this like revamp of NXT 2.0, which everybody was completely like, crapping on and all of that. But I almost feel like a good amount of people forget how good NXT was before all of this went down. And it kind of bums me out, because, to be honest, like, there was so much good stuff on NXT. And like Alex, brought up a good point of, a lot of people that, essentially had, their names being made on NXT. And it is not like necessarily like, for example, like, I feel like people are always like, I've seen these comments on social media where people are like trashing Triple H, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, dude, he literally did everything in his power to make NXT a legitimate thing. And like, for example, like, even a recent story, we had Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe, which was an interesting story. People, I would say, that were watching NXT were interested in this story. And then what happens? You randomly have Karrion Kross go up to the main roster as NXT champion and lose in his debut match on Raw. That was not a Triple H call. So it's like, you could only do so much to a certain extent. And that's the thing where I'm just kind of like, man, I feel people forget how cool it used to be an NXT fan. And I remember this because I attended so many of these shows where the fan base was absolutely rabid, and they were like, losing their mind for all of these, badass wrestling matches that we were seeing. And that's the thing that I think is unfortunate in all of this, is that now we, essentially have this revamp in NXT 2.0, which I don't necessarily hate, but I'm not going to say I love it either. But it's one of those things where, like, now we lost out on how cool NXT was prior. And it sucks, because a lot of things that people remember is really just, kind of what happened with the Wednesday Night Wars, etc.
Yeah. No,
let me just say,
100%
let
right.
me just say here, sorry, Denise, I will never forget how good NXT was. I am behind you completely. 2015 to 16 to 19, pretty much until they went to cable, was honestly one of my favorite periods of wrestling in any promotion. I thought it was amazing. And alas, apparently it was only us. Vince McMahon didn't.
Teardrop, man. I'm depressed now. Dude, remember when we used to watch NXT Take, and this still happens like even now, but like, remember when we watch NXT Takeover and people would be like, oh my God, this match is only better than the last match, and this match is better than the last match. Come on.
There was a stretch where takeovers were the best wrestling shows in the world, in my opinion. And I know people would counter Japan and stuff, but I would argue that those takeover shows were red hot in those years. Like, there was a stretch that was unbelievable. May it rest in peace.
You know
what? Just depressing.
I don't think this is the reason that NXT isn't in the current version, but there were times when you'd have the Saturday takeovers, and then you'd have the Sunday WWE pay-per-view follow it, and the Sunday WWE pay-per-view was not nearly as good as the Saturday night takeovers. And it was almost like you had the NXT brand showing up the main brand stuff, right? And so I don't think Vince is going to sabotage it for that reason. But if you're looking at the way that they work, sometimes that couldn't have necessarily helped if your finishing school version of the product makes your real product look bad, right? Because there were some times where I would watch a match or I'd watch a show, and then WWE would follow it, and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, like this is not even like, look at the crowd. Like the crowd at those takeover shows were amazing, and then you see the pay-per-view, like a random SummerSlam, and it's like, the crowd is just there to kind of hang out and watch. But those were the days, and I don't think we're gonna get that back, at least anytime soon.
Man,
for sure.
Takeover New York before Mania 35. That's one right there. Like that New York show, unbelievable. And I was in New Orleans before WrestleMania 34, which actually started off as a good WrestleMania. But the New Orleans Takeover the night before that as well.
Yeah,
man, just how could you can't compete with that. Vince probably couldn't wait for him to fail, but that's so counterintuitive that I don't want to believe it.
Yeah, it is hard to believe. Okay, can we talk about Crown Jewel, because we have a rare opportunity to watch even more wrestling on a Thursday morning for Denise and I, and a Thursday evening for you, right, Alex?
Yeah, I'm going to Dave Chappelle actually, so I'm not even going to watch it. Yeah, he's come to England for the first time in years. I'm not going to pass up on that, but I will. Yeah, so I'm not going to be covering it live, but I will be watching it when I get home, and of course, doing my shows and whatnot. So I can't quite escape it, but I do enjoy the way Ali refers to Crown Jewel. Did you see this on Twitter earlier?
No, what did he say?
He instead of saying like. So he's basically donating everything he makes from Crown Jewel. And he tweeted saying, earnings from the 1021 event will be donated to charity. Not Crown Jewel.
The 1021 event. Oh, I love that.
That's what it should be called.
Yeah. Well, because I feel like no matter what, like even like here's the thing that I've sort of run into, obviously, it's my job to cover these shows. And, I put out there, I genuinely think that the match for Crown Jewel is a good card. I legitimately think that, okay? And I have people tweeting me, don't support this show. Don't support this show. And I'm like, dang, like it's my job. And I don't necessarily think though that people should be like punished for like watching the show, like that just seems too like, I don't know, it seems too micromanaging to me. Like if you don't want to support the show, you don't have to, but it's like you shouldn't be mad at the people that are watching the show.
You know what's funny about that is I don't know how up on soccer you guys are, but I'm a big Newcastle United fan, and we've just been bought by the Saudi kingdom. So like it's exactly what you just said, Denise. There you go. There's a Newcastle tattoo for those who are watching. But it's exactly what Denise just said. We're all like, oh my God, we're like the richest football club in the world now. And it's like, about time, because we've been awful for like 20 years. And then there's everyone going, oh, but at what price? And I'm like, well, it's not my fault. Like, I can't.
Right? You're like, what can you do?
Not watch football anymore. Oh, come on.
Yeah, but it's a little interesting.
I definitely understand where some of that comes from, but if you are trying to equate pro wrestling with like the moral compass of yourself, like that, there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, because WWE is a business. They're a very successful business. They're not going to turn down this crazy money where it really makes their company what the company is, in addition to this TV money that they make. So that is definitely somebody's call, though. If you don't want to support this show, I 100% understand that. And but like Denise said, it's kind of what we're doing here, so we got to talk about it. Denise, you mentioned that you like the show, you like the card. I feel like these cards are generally always really good, but the output from the show always leaves me feeling like, well, they didn't really care about this show that much. Like they built it up to be this big thing, and then the output is that like, they just treated it as a show. So does that hamper your excitement about it, knowing that these shows of the past, they don't really mean anything to WWE canon? Like it's just kind of like an event to make money off of, but the real event is going to be Survivor Series or whatever.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. And that was one of the things that was a little irritating because it was like, come on, you're putting Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. Like, this could have been, on a different card. And, like, I mean, a card that kind of, means more than Crown Jewel. So I do agree with that. And it's one of those things where, like, I had a lot of people saying, when I put out there that I thought this was a good card, everybody was like, well, it doesn't matter that it's a good card. What matters is, what the quality of the show is. And at the end of the day, like, what is going to, impact the show largely, too, is that these Crown Jewel shows, you kind of, the audience, as we all know, given everything that we just went through with the pandemic and even before that, as we all know, the audience really, really dictates and helps improve a show. You can have a mediocre match, but if the crowd is really just like hot for it, they can level up a mediocre match and make it much more greater just with the crowd reaction. So I think the crowd also is a big thing during these shows because, they're not your normal WWE, people that follow the shows. I mean, at least I don't think so, like religiously, like a lot of other people do when you go to Survivor Series or SummerSlam or WrestleMania, that crowd. So I do sometimes feel that the crowd sort of, I don't know. I think it was like the first Crown Jewel, if you remember, when you had all of like the people in the front row, like during the show, like walking around, not even paying attention to the show. And I'm like, oh man, like that's kind of taken away from the show, And it's because, you need the fans to, have, the reactions and the chants and, all of that stuff. And you don't really get that with the Crown Jewel shows,
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% on that. Alex, you mentioned that two of your favorite current storylines are going to be there's a match coming out of both of them, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and Edge against Seth, which is, I think, the third match, the rubber match here. Do you expect those matches to be as great as you would on like a WrestleMania kind of card?
That's a tough question. I feel like to kind of hit it on the nose, what we've been saying here, the Saudi Arabian shows are historically kind of house shows. That's how they feel when you watch them. Like you can, rarely is a title going to change hands. I know they have like Bray Wyatt, but pretty much that was because of the Hell in a Cell debacle that preceded it. But I think looking at up and down this card, that there kind of has to be a winner in the Becky Lynch, Belair, Banks match, right? Like there kind of has to be a title change in a way. Otherwise, the titles, I don't know. It's going to be a weird situation with that. Big E and Drew, probably a Big E retention, isn't it? But then you get to Rollins, Edge, Hell in a Cell. I feel like everything Edge has done since he's come back, like nothing has been through the motions. Everything means something. He doesn't do anything without it equating to something larger. And I feel like having the rubber match here in Crown Jewel, that's kind of a big deal that Edge would even, I mean, he gets told what to do, right? But still, it's still a big deal that they would finish the feud here because presumably Hell in a Cell, third match, it's one apiece. This is going to be it for Rollins and Edge. And we know that they're Raw bound or whatever. But yeah, as far as Roman and Brock goes, I don't think there's any way this is the one and done. This story with Heyman is going to unfold. We're going to see Heyman's true colors, I don't doubt, which would have been better in front of an American crowd for sure. But, I don't know if, I'm sure they are big fans over there, but still. Watching that story play out and seeing where his loyalties go, I don't know if it's going to be a Big Show Lesnar-esque Survivor Series 2002 situation going down. But at the same time, that's a very intriguing story. And again, probably the hottest one the company's got. And they're putting one of the first chapters on Crown Jewel. And if you believe reports, Lesnar's not to be seen again until the Rumble. So one has to wonder how this is really going to play out when you've got Roman week to week moving forward.
Right.
Exactly.
So also a part of Crown Jewel is the culmination of these King of the Ring and Queen's Crown tournaments. I found the men's tournament, the King of the Ring tournament, to be pretty decent. Like, it was okay. But they really, really did not seem to take the Queen's Crown tournament very seriously based on how short some of these matches were, based on the finishes. On Raw, we saw Shayna get beat in I mean, if you understand mixed martial arts or what, like just not a way that Shayna would ever lose a match or a fight to get Doudrop in there. I just wonder, like, is this Queen's Crown tournament meant for us to take seriously? Because it just seemed like if you wanted to make fun of the whole idea of this tournament, that's how these matches were booked out. It's like, oh, let's put the people who people don't even want to see or expect to see win. Like, let's not make it a strong tournament. Let's kind of make it a joke. And that's how I feel when I see, these women go out there, like someone like Toni Storm, she gets to wrestle for, 2 or 3 minutes. And, last night, Shayna losing in the way that she lost. Like, and we'll start with Denise, but like, what did you think about this tournament? Was it as bad as I'm explaining, or am I like overthinking this?
Garrett, you have no idea what I've been through with this tournament. I got so much heat on Twitter. People were emailing me because they were so upset that I posted the times for the Queen's Crown tournament, that I posted the times for the matches, okay? So we've had 6 matches now. This is the semifinals, the first round matches. The tournament is, I think someone did the math, I think in total between like 13 and 14 minutes total in all of the 6 matches. There is a good possibility that this entire tournament, once we put the finals in, may not even surpass the 20-minute mark in totality. And a lot of people were very upset that I posted that. And it was just, to me, like, I had my reasons as to why I posted it, and I explained it on my post show. And it legitimately is the fact that you're never going to get the women over. A lot of the women that, aren't your Becky Lynch's, aren't your Sasha Banks, your Charlotte Flairs, those people. You're never going to get them over if you're not letting the people take them seriously. And so that is why I posted it, because people were legitimately looking forward to this tournament. And then they haven't even showcased the women in a like way that you're just like, oh my God, this is so badass. And they could do it. It's just that we haven't necessarily been able to see it. So that's been unfortunate, honestly. I really wish they would have done a little bit more with the women's, the Queen of the Ring. I think they should have done more. As for the men, though, I'm looking at the matches right here, and dude, they've been awesome. Like Cesaro Finn Balor was awesome. I really like Sami Zayn Finn Balor was awesome, and I do think that the finals with Finn Balor and Xavier Woods is going to be an awesome match. It's just one of those things where like, dang, like what can you do? Like literally, look at these like times though. Literally, just 2 matches in the first round for the men. You had already surpassed, like literally just 2 matches already surpassed 6 of the women's matches. And so it's just like, well, I don't know what to say.
So, I wonder, like, once I saw the bracket, I thought, okay, so none of the top women are in this. So it's a mid-card tournament, or maybe even lower than a mid-card tournament. And then as I saw the results, I don't know anything. This is a complete guess on my part, but it is almost like Vince McMahon thought the culmination of this tournament was humorous to him if this person won, and decided that's what we're going to do. I want to make myself laugh. We're going to have, Doudrop or Zelina, who, we have not taken seriously yet, win, and everyone's going to think that it's so funny and it's so humorous, and that's what I like. And like, that's such a wrong thing, because to what this tournament should be about is making a new star. I don't see that he's going to take Doudrop seriously, even though the woman behind Doudrop is a really good wrestler. I don't think he's going to take Zelina Vega seriously, even though the former Tia Trinidad has a ton of charisma and can get over in front of a crowd. I don't know if her wrestling matches that yet, but like, the idea should be, and this is why I would be upset and am upset, is that one of these women could have been taken to a different level to enter that top 4 mix, or top 5 if we add Rhea, or let's bring Raquel up and it could be 6. Like, somebody should be up leveled, and it just seems like that was not the idea from the get-go, which makes me super frustrated because, again, it's the WWF or WWE selling something to be interesting and exciting and then not taking it seriously. And the joke is actually on the fan base. And Alex, I said a whole lot about that. Give me your take on all of this stuff that we're talking about.
Well, you hit the nail on the head in many areas, and it will come as a surprise to no one that I'm very mad about how this has transpired. I've been calling for Queen of the Ring, which I'm still unsure as why it's not just called Queen of the Ring, for a long time now, for that very purpose. I too am a big fan of when King of the Ring was used to elevate talents. Think around turn of the millennium. Okay, we had a few misses with Billy Gunn and whatnot, but still, by and large, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, all of their trajectories, obviously Austin speaks for himself, all of their trajectories were enhanced by the King of the Ring tournament. People forget that about Brock Lesnar, but that kind of jettisoned him into that main event picture for SummerSlam in 2002. It's in WWE's eyes, it's become a gimmick. And looking at the way they've booked the women's tournament, I've never been so sure that the winner is just going to be going around with a gown and a crown, whatever. Like, I don't know what they're trying to achieve out of it. Because when I looked at the brackets, I thought, okay, well, maybe you make Toni Storm, right? Maybe you finally give Shayna Baszler the run, the
Queen of Spades.
Magician, Queen of Spades. I spoke to Charlotte Flair, I want to say 2 months ago now, maybe. Something like that. And I said to her about it, well, if there was a Queen of the Ring, when the reports were flying around and Andrew Zarian, our good friend, had begun emanating those reports, I was like, would you be interested in officially being the Queen? She was like, well, I already am. She was like, why would I? She was like, let someone else win the tournament, and then maybe they'll face me on pay-per-view and we'll have a Queen off or whatever.
She's such a star.
Which I mean, I didn't even mind that, right? Like, let someone else get leveled up. Fine. But again, Zelina Vega and Doudrop, what are they really going to get out of this? And I think Denise is very, very right in bringing up the time, because time does matter. Like, when you win the Royal Rumble, that's a big achievement, right? We all understand why. It's a long, arduous journey and all of these great things that WWE marketing will tell you. But for the Queen of the Ring, Queen's Crown, sorry, what have we learned? Like, what does it mean to have won this at the moment? Like, fans aren't seeing any kind of journey or story in play here. They are just a series of short matches. That is quite literally it. And at the end of it, mark my words, there will just be somebody who is a gimmick queen. And that is it. When in actual fact, you could make someone be like, you know what, I am the best in this ring. That's what King of the Ring used to be about. I am the best. And that's something that WWE don't want to lean into for some obscure reason. I feel like it harms it. And with the men, I'm all for Xavier Woods realizing his dream. Of course I am. Who isn't? But I feel like partnering him with Finn Balor, the WWE ethos, and I hate to keep, crapping on WWE here, it makes me feel like they're going to make him come up short. They would prefer to see Xavier lose at the final hurdle than to realize his big dream and to be King of the Ring. And partnering him against Finn Balor only enhances my feeling in that regard. If it'd been maybe any other heel, but the fact that it's Finn has got me wondering, like, oh man, I think they're actually going to give it to Finn. So yeah, I don't feel like they've booked the men's may end up being great. I feel like the women have been shortchanged from the jump. Like, if you're going to do it, then at least that parity at the very least with the men, but maybe go above and beyond, because it's the inaugural one. You're trying to set your stall out here. You're trying to make something, set a precedent, and they just haven't. That's a simple fact.
Yep.
So, Denise, are we going to see King Woods, or is the former Prince Devitt going to become King Balor?
I kind of agree with Alex on this one. And I was saying this last night. I will not be surprised if they have, Finn essentially turn heel during this match, win the King of the Ring. And I do think he'd be a great opponent for Big E down the road. It should be great. But I have a feeling that's the direction they're going to go with.
I think so too. We all love Finn Balor. So it's not a bad choice, but this Woods story is fun, and it's something that, again, utilizing this to accentuate somebody and raise their level should be one of the goals. But okay, so we only have a few minutes here. I didn't prep Alex for this. I don't know if Denise, if you did, but we kind of like
No,
to
I
do
didn't.
this.
Sorry, Alex.
We do a thing called.
I'm asking you to memorize every single match that happened this year.
So what we do is at the end of every show, we do who's our performer of the week, and we start our week starting Tuesday. We go Tuesday through Monday just because of how we record this show. So starting last Tuesday through yesterday, think of who your performer of the week is, and I'll let you go last, so because we didn't give you a heads up on this. I'll go first, and then Denise, you can come through. I think the easy one, and I'll take the easy way out here, which is when you have a match with Minoru Suzuki on Friday, and then you have a match with Bobby Fish on Saturday. I think Bryan Danielson has to be the guy. It was awesome. He looks like he's having the time of his life, and this is a guy who, is former WWE champion, and it looks like now he's like just having the time of his life, doing things that he wants to do. So I will go with Bryan Danielson. Denise, who will you go with for your performer of the week?
This is a tough one because I have a lot of people that I think could be up on that list. Now, just to give somebody different other than Bryan Danielson, I want to go. See, I don't want to do like a generic, not a generic answer, but I don't want to like state the obvious. So aside from Bryan Danielson, aside from Minoru Suzuki, who is literally making the rounds everywhere and killing it. So aside from those two names, I'm actually going to go with, I'm kind of torn between Bianca and Dante. So I want to say Bianca Belair because she had that phenomenal match with Charlotte and she just brought it. But I also want to give it to Dante Martin because I just think he did such a great job during that match with Malakai Black. I'm going to go with Bianca Belair, though, because I just really like that match with her and Charlotte. And some of the things that she was doing, she did a freaking handspring in heels, Garrett. So I'm going to go with Bianca Belair.
Wait, so you're going to see Suzuki and Gage, aren't you?
Yeah.
Are you announcing? Are you ring announcing on that show?
Well, I share with Emil. We share, so like they tell me like which matches I ring announce. Like he's the main ring announcer, so like I we kind of split it in half.
You should tell him that you want Suzuki and Gage.
Oh no, I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Come on.
I take what I can get.
Oh, my goodness. All right, Alex, you're going to wrap us up here. Who is your performer of the week?
Oh, man. I mean, if you want the honest answer, like what was my first instinct when you asked me, Bryan Danielson was my first thought. But I guess
you could pick him too. You don't have to choose anyone differently.
It's an easy answer because he worked the Friday and the Saturday, right? And they were both very, very good. I do think that Becky and Sasha crucified it on Friday Night SmackDown. And again, like you just said, Charlotte and Bianca as well. So it does make it tough. But I do think just because he's put in two good matches, great matches, in fact, I am going to go with Bryan Danielson as my performer of the week. And I agree with everything you said as well, Garrett. Like, he looks like he's really kicking some heads in. He's thoroughly enjoying himself. And as a result, I think we all are too. Like, it's kind of like a new odyssey for Bryan.
Imagine being able to, now I'm not saying he's reinventing himself because he's always been great, but his evolution from his Ring of Honor days, and then he was in WWE for a long time, right? So learning that system, understanding how to get over in WWE, and then now going backward a little bit, getting a little bit closer to those ROH roots, but also taking the experience from being on the biggest wrestling TV show in the world and all of the things that he gets from that, from his personality coming out in a much bigger way. I think we have, I'm sure if you ask him, he'll say that his younger version of himself as an actual athlete was probably better in ring. But I feel like he's put all of these things together from all of his experience and may be the very best Bryan Danielson that we've ever seen, which I don't know if that happens necessarily. It's not supposed to happen when you get into your 40s, right? Like you're supposed to kind of be a little bit of a worse worse wrestler than you were, but I don't know. I think he may be the best version of himself at this point, which is kind of amazing to think about.
In short, he's living his best life.
Living his best life.
Yeah. I do think a weird parallel is with Jon Moxley. Like both of them just strike me as guys who are doing what the hell they love, right? Like Jon Moxley just has this Japanese dream match tour because he feels like it, and Bryan Danielson is like, I'm just going to mat wrestle everybody that I get in there with, and then I'm going to kick the crap out of people. Like they are just doing what they love in wrestling the most, really. And I feel like all of us can feel it.
Yeah.
What better can you get than that?
Heel hook finish on TV. Wow.
I know.
Hey, so Alex, tell everybody where they can find you. Really appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun.
Thank you for the invite, man. I really enjoyed it. You guys can get me at AlexM_Talksport on Twitter and Instagram. Don't worry about Instagram. It's just family spewing. You can get me on Twitter, though, and I am going to be dropping more stuff from my Chris Jericho interview tomorrow. That you can listen to that in full on the Talk Wrestling podcast on all fine podcast providers on the Fight Night Talksport feed, and talksport.com/wrestling is where you'll find all of my written work, be it interviews and exclusives. There's been a ton going on in the past couple of months, so make sure you do check it out.
All right. And Denise, you have some nice guests set up for Speak Now this week.
I do. I'm very excited. So this week is kind of crazy. So my shows are being pushed back a little bit. But on Saturday, I'm going to be reviewing SmackDown and Rampage with John Pollock. I'm very excited about that. On Sunday, I'll be doing a Dynamite review.
Fantastic guy.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be my first time meeting him, like, virtually, of course, virtually. Yes. And then Sunday, I'll be doing my post show for Dynamite with Robbie Fox. So that's going to be very exciting. It's one of those things where, like, I figured I was like, okay, I'm going to be a day, a day late with my reviews. But so I wanted to bring some guests to sort of make up for that. And then today, as always, I'll be live to talk about NXT right here on this channel. And yeah, I'll be here. You'll see me. And then I have GCW this week. I have PCW Ultra this week. I mean, it's kind of bananas. Oh, and then on top of that, I have all my other stuff. I'm done.
Robbie is crushing it, by the way, at the moment. Robbie Fox, he is killing. And I forgot to plug Wrestling Daily, which you see behind me. Robbie Fox has been on there, Denise. So there you go. That's a good way to segue in there.
It is. It really is.
Denise and I are going to have to figure out a recording schedule because for the first time, my podcast, we're going to try to live stream on this YouTube channel Saturday after Dynamite. So we'll sort of figure out so that we don't cross.
I'm going live at 12, and I already announced to Garrett.
Okay, yeah. Wait,
you're gonna
no.
Pacific
So
Standard Time,
midnight or noon?
No, like noon.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go late. We're going late. It's gonna be
okay. Then you're fine. Then do you?
It's gonna be like the fight game after dark, since it's gonna be so late, right after Dynamite. We may have an alcoholic.
No, so you're going. So you're going on at midnight, right?
No, we'll go on that like 10, 15 or so after Dynamite's done.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
But you are 100%. Top priority, so I that's why I wanted to clear it with you.
It's just for this weekend. After that, I'll be back to my normal schedule.
All right, so so again, thanks to Alex and Denise for setting this up. Like she's brought in most of our guests so far, and we're gonna have a surprise one next week as well. So for Alex, for Denise, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.